Welcome to Love Lately, the podcast where we dive into the real conversations about love, relationship, and all the joys and challenges that come along with finding love and keeping it after 50.
Okay, so look, whether you're looking for love, starting over, or navigating the ins and outs of long-term commitment, we're just here to share our journey and the insights we've discovered with you.
I'm Lee, and this is my husband, Ron, and we definitely don't have all the answers. Like, trust me, we do not have all the answers. But we have many questions, and we want to unpack them with you. We will talk about what love looks like in this stage of life and how we can make it work.
So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and join us for honest, heartfelt, faith-filled conversations that remind us all it is never too late for love.
Welcome to Love Lately. Welcome to Love Lately. I'm Lee.
Hey guys, I'm Ron.
And we are excited to have you join us one more time for this exciting episode. We know that you may be a first-time viewer, so welcome. And if you're returning and you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button.
Please.
We are trying to build a community and do some exciting things in the upcoming months. So we want to make sure that you are a subscriber and that you're part of our community.
Yes.
So, anything else?
Well, just Love Lately. We're just going to keep building off of previous episodes and talking about things that we've experienced and gone through in our relationship and how to make those connections that are at this point in our lives and love over 50 or in the later years of your lives. And,
but, really, I mean, that is definitely our target. But a lot of the topics we talk about can apply at any stage of a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you're under 50 and you happen to stumble across us, don't end this video, because we have some really great topics that really can apply at any stage of a relationship.
Yes.
And so today, I love this word. I love this word. I love what this word means. So I'm going to try to keep this episode short because I love talking about this.
Yes, me too.
And we're going to talk about intention today.
Being intentional.
Yes.
Yes, I'm excited. This is like where the rubber meets the road.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where, it's time to put up.
Yes.
Yes.
It's
time to put up and just be intentional.
Right. Okay, so tell me why you love the word so much.
Well, I mean, for me, I remember when we first started talking and dating, it was after long periods of phone conversations and video chats, and it was like our second meeting, and I knew it was something wonderful and special about you, and I knew that I wanted to explore the possibility of a relationship, and that was my intention. And I wanted the intention to be made known to you, and I think one of our first real deep conversations, I said, listen, I'm here.
I remember.
I ain't going nowhere. This is what I want. This is what I'm interested in. And so I made that decision, and then I just started, I made a decision to act like it.
Yes.
Act like this is what I wanted. This is what I'm speaking. This is where I want to invest my time and energy into. And I'm going to let you know that. And from that moment on, it was my intention to act like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I could definitely feel your intention. Yeah. Like, I knew there was without a doubt that the intention was there, and it really set the tone for our relationships.
I think having an intention, it's having a deliberate plan.
Yes. It's
having a deliberate plan with a deliberate desired outcome. It's not done accidentally or just with happenstance. I have a plan. I'm going to be deliberate about it, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's important at this stage in our lives because, time and energy is such a, valuable resource to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My time, my energy is valuable. I value your time, your energy.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is waste yours or mine.
Right.
So it's about being intentional, being deliberate, having a plan, working toward that plan, not being, accidental or, just going by whatever.
Go with the flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going with the flow.
Not giving any title.
Absolutely.
We've heard people talk about that.
Yes.
So let's talk about two categories.
Okay.
One, the unmarried person watching this. What happens when you might be feeling somebody, you kind of like them, but you're not feeling that they're being intentional? Do you cut it off? Do you keep going? Like, what do you do? Because I hear a lot of of my friends have mentioned that they might like someone, but the person isn't being focused and intentional on the next steps.
Okay. So I love this quote. I saw this quote a while back, and it says, "A person's effort is a real indication of their interest in you."
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So that's an indication. So I mean, effort is important. Intentionality is important.
Yes.
Having a plan is important. And I think coming from both sides, if it's something that we've made a decision to invest our time and our energy in, then there has to be a plan, and there has to be, not always that goal is clear to you up front, but if it's someone that you feel you want to invest this time in, then you should feel that same energy from that person and their effort. It's an indication
Yeah.
of their interest.
Yes.
Yes. So you want to look for that.
Right.
You want to look for the effort. You want to look for the interest.
And if you don't see the effort
yes,
and the interest, then it's probably a no-go. If that's your intention.
I mean, we see so many of our friends in relationships that find themselves in these relationships. I'm not talking about 3, 4, 6 month relationships, relationships for a couple of years. And there's always this instance of where there's no intentionality.
Yes.
There's no intention. And I'm like, so we're like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What's happening in 2 years that you're still in the same place now that you were 2 years ago?
Right.
And there hasn't been any movement, no intention, and no plan to move forward, no plan to develop something beyond where we started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I love that. That's really good. So that's for the unmarried. But okay, so let's talk about intentionality in a marriage. Because not only is this about finding love over 50, but those of us who this may be a second marriage or a first marriage, but we're later on in life, we don't want to waste time. We want to have good marriages, right? So intentionality within a marriage. And I want to pick up on something close to what you talked about with your quote, because I equate intentionality also with attention. So what you focus on grows.
Yes.
And what you don't focus on will fade away, right?
Wither.
Right.
Absolutely.
So attention, whatever we pay attention to, is where all of our energy goes. Where attention flows, energy goes. That's a big quote.
Okay.
And so it's important, even within a marriage, of paying attention to, where do we put our energy? Where do I put my attention? Right? So that's part of intentionality. Of one of the reasons I love the word intention and intentionality is because it has a lot to do with a vision. And I, at my heart, I'm a visionary. I love thinking about big visions. And so there's no way to have a vision for your marriage without having intentional.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And part of that intentionality is kind of like what you said, even when you were first started dating me, is like knowing what you want and knowing what you want it to look like. Yeah. So with your marriage, do you have a vision for your marriage, what you want it to look like?
Absolutely. And I think it's important that you do sit down as a couple, to discuss that vision. And sometimes the vision for our marriage may be different for me than it is for you.
Yes.
But we talked about being open-minded and listening and being able to be open-minded enough to accept what your spouse's vision may be able to, kind of change your life a little bit, incorporate your life into that vision, or vice versa. And just kind of meeting in the middle and just explore, but being intentional about it, being intentional about where we're going, what we're going to do. And also, I like, even with intentional, is doing things on purpose.
Yes.
For purpose.
On purpose, for purpose.
Yes.
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 And okay, so I love that, because that reminds me of vision, at least for me, and I can't speak for other people, but marriage is about having a purpose. And so if we're coming together, especially later in life, or even got later in life.
Yes.
We're together for a reason.
For a reason. Absolutely.
So if we don't know that
Yes.
and have an intention
Yes.
and purpose tied to that,
Yes.
floating through life, and this is not to knock anybody's flow or vibe or how they live their lives, but we don't get married just to take trips
Right.
and to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like those things are good and we should do them.
Yeah.
But like, what is the bigger, deeper
Right.
meaning and purpose of your union and being intentional about the vision and how we get there?
Well, it says the two shall become one.
Mm-hmm.
And the becoming is that's the meat
The
of
work.
That's the meat of it.
Yes.
The becoming.
Yes.
And so becoming one, that definitely involves being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Being intentional about your thoughts, what do you do, your energy, where's this? Say, for instance, the podcast, something that's never been on my radar,
Yes.
not my wheelhouse, but it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talked about it, we talked about the purpose of it,
Mm-hmm.
the vision behind it. And I was like, even though it was something that I would have never thought about doing, not my wheelhouse, you're the marketing media person,
Mm-hmm.
but being open-minded enough to see your vision, understand the vision, how the vision can affect our marriage in a positive way, gives us some purpose. I said, okay,
Right.
let's do that.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be anything it doesn't have to be something that I'm comfortable with or used to, but just understanding that we do have some sort of purpose and being open-minded enough to explore what that may be.
Right. So one of the things I want to pick up in one of the words, and this came out when you were just talking, is being intentional means some type of planning. So as we're thinking about if you're married, if you're seriously dating, and you're thinking about how can I be more intentional, thinking about what are some plans that you all can make. And I'm not talking about big plans. I mean, those big plans are good too, but if we know that we want to have good communication in our marriage, and that's something that's important to us, and it should be important in every marriage, I guess. How are you planning for that? Because if we don't, what is it? If you don't plan,
If you fail to plan,
you plan to fail. So we want to think about that even in our marriages. Like what are the things that you can do to make sure that you're having intimacy, or you are communicating well, or you have good financial habits, or you're pouring into your children, and all the things. And planning is very big with intention.
Absolutely. I remember when we first started dating, long distance. You're in Atlanta, I'm in Chicago. And I love the fact that every time may involve lots of traveling, phone calls, FaceTimes, video calls. But I love the fact that each and every time we got together, we never parted without knowing the next time we were going to see each other.
Yeah.
That was always the plan. So it is important to be intentional, have a plan, understand the purpose. We're together. We want to be together. So we want to have a plan. We don't just want to float through this and just allow things to happen when they happen. You have to be intentional. You have to understand that this is what I want. This is where I want it to go. And so what part do I need to play in that purpose, in that plan? I have to be intentional about that. Yeah. Expressive, get into action.
Yeah.
And keep moving.
So we've talked about vision. We've talked about planning. And the other thing I want to make sure we talk about is something we talked about in our last episode, boundaries. To be intentional. I love how you put it in the last episode. So go back and listen to it if you did not listen, about sometimes boundaries are to keep certain things in. And if we're being intentional with our marriage, with our relationships, of definitely keeping certain things out, but making sure that, we keep our recipe together.
Yes.
Keep it all in.
Yes.
And what are the boundaries that have to be set up so that we're intentional about where we're going and what we're doing?
Yeah. We're intentional about protecting what's important to us.
Yes.
What's important to us, having the plan, the vision, moving forward to that, and then understanding that anything that can disrupt that.
Yes.
Comes against that.
Yes.
Not conducive to that moving forward and
Yes.
and coming to fruition, we need to protect ourselves against that.
Yes.
Being intentional about what we allow in our relationships, what we allow.
I took notes. I'm being intentional.
Just being intentional in our planning and our protection in the vision, and not allowing anything to disrupt that, throw that off center, and to come in to cause any type of disruption in our plan.
Yes.
Being intentional about that.
Absolutely.
Being intentional. I'm intentional about protecting her. I'm intentional about loving her. I'm intentional about letting her know that she's safe. I was intentional from the very beginning in letting her know that this is you who I want in every aspect of my life. I want you to be involved in.
Yes, you were.
And so I think that's important, that you show that intentionality and expect that intentionality. You have to expect it.
I love that.
Yes, you have to show it, and you should expect it. And if you're not receiving that intentionality from whoever you're interested in, whether it's someone you're interested in, or your spouse, or well, hey, that needs to be discussed.
Yes.
Where are we going? What are we doing? And what's the plan?
Yes.
What's the plan?
That was the other thing as we start to close this up, is I had written down with intentionality, you must have communication and communicating those intentions, because sometimes we have things in our head about what we're being intentional about or what kind of intention we want, but we haven't communicated that. And then the final thing I wanted to touch on with intentionality, I put down doing regular heart checkups. And I think it's part of intentionality is also checking in with yourself, that you're self-aware.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Yeah. Am I on track with the intention? Yeah. And I think, and it goes back to, I can't remember what episode we talked about this, but like self-awareness is just so important. And I think we just float through relationships, only focus on the other person and not looking at ourselves.
Yeah, we talk about an inventory.
Yeah.
Doing the inventory.
Yeah.
And sometimes that needs to be done daily. Am I doing the things that I need to do on a daily basis, being intentional about it according to what our plan is, what my plan is, what her plan is, what the plan is for each other. And I do have to say that when we talked about expressing that intentionality and expecting the intentionality, and if you're not getting the intentionality, especially if you're in the dating phase, you're not married, those things need to be looked at seriously, because a lot of times, like I said, our most precious commodity is our time and our energy.
Absolutely.
And if you're not receiving that intentionality, and that person is not being intentional, giving you the things that you would expect, and being intentional with this relationship or the plan or the purpose that we had in moving forward, then it's time to
take inventory.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where the rubber meets the road, man.
Yes.
And you decide, you figure out where a person is.
Yes.
And what is it that a person wants.
Absolutely.
And what is it that a person is willing to do to achieve that goal. Achieve that goal. You have to expect that, because like I talked about before, we have so many people that we are associated with or friends with, and they're just spinning their wheels in relationships. And they talk about all the time how it's just not moving forward in the way that they wanted to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we know there's no intentionality in the relationship.
Right. Well, this has been awesome.
Yes.
I love talking about intentionality, and whether you're married or not married. And my charge to you all is to really think about, first of all, how intentional are you with yourself and doing the work on yourself, whatever that is, because people will treat you only as good as you treat yourselves, right? If you encounter someone who is not intentional about their own lives, how can we really expect someone to be intentional with us? And that goes back again to boundaries, because even when I started dating him, he was very clear on his intentions. He had certain things he did, workout, Bible study, going to bed. Like, he was intentional. So I knew whatever I was going to get from him was going to be with thought, vision, intention directness, right? So thinking about that. And then again, whether you're dating in a marriage, how can you incorporate more intentionality into your relationships?
Yes. And I just believe life is so precious and our time is so valuable that it's not, and that I don't want to go around just wasting it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want some intentionality in my life from anyone I'm involved with. And I want to be intentional about my time and my energy, because it's important to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to expect that in relationship, especially if you're dating, you're looking for love lately, then, you want someone to be intentional. You want to know what's their plan. Do they have a plan?
Yeah.
Are they direct and just intentional about where we're moving with this relationship? I wanted her and I acted like it.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Once again, please subscribe, and visit our website at lovelately.com.
Yes, please.
I believe it's lovelatelypod.com. Look in the bio and you'll see the website. And we want to make sure you join our newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter as well, because again, we have some fun and interesting things coming up. We're thinking about doing a couples retreat. We're going to have some merchandise for you to purchase possibly. And we want to hear more about maybe some topics that you want us to talk about, or
definitely want your feedback. So
feedback.
we're looking for, your comments, questions, or even some suggestions for topics we can discuss.
And we're also going to be entertaining possibly some guests on the show where he may talk to some husbands or potential husbands. And I'm going to talk to some ladies about dating and marriage and all of those things. So we want to make sure that you're connected and we find out if you maybe want to be on a future episode.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Love Lately. We hope today's conversation sparked some thoughts and maybe even some inspiration for your own love story.
Remember, love does not have an expiration date. It should always be evolving and growing, and so are we together.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little encouragement in their love journey.
And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, just drop us a line. We love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep finding, building, and enjoying love lately.